Ladies and gentlemen, girl and boys, welcome to Talking Pictures. How about that fucking Furiosa trailer?
You're not even going to say who we are, just immediately trailer of the week. I knew you were going to do this.
David, mother of Jesus. Folks, welcome to Talking Pictures. My name's Brian. I'll be your host for today's episode. I'm joined by my great friend today, David, and who's co-hosting today's episode with me, as always, every Wednesday.
Yeah, we're always here. We always start off the episode with a trailer of the week, but you couldn't even just wait to get through our names before you
Yeah.
Brian, have you got a trailer of the week for us that you want to talk about?
Yeah, so whatchamacallit? Fucking Furiosa, man. I'll tell you what, the only thing I didn't like about this is that it says a Mad Max saga. That feels like it might cheapen it a little because, you know, Rogue One, a Star Wars story, El Camino, a Breaking Bad story, The Many Saints of New York, a Soprano story, the Girl in the Spider's Web, a new dragon tattoo story. Mm-hmm. You know, feels like I get why you want to throw Mad Max in there because intellectual property. This trailer does not need that subtitle, let alone the movie. I'm going into this movie predetermined, heavily biased that I will like it. That's because I adored, loved, and I'm obsessed with anything and everything when it comes to the film of Mad Max in 2015, which me and you had a little chat about on this podcast. Folks, you want to listen back to that? My thoughts on Mad Max 2015. I saw it the night I was having my grad mass. Anywho, yeah, the trailer was released. I've been waiting for Furiosa for the guts of 2 to 3 years. I remember when Anya Taylor-Joy was cast. I remember when Yahya Abdul-Mateen II was cast and then dropped out and was replaced by Tom Burke. So I've been paying attention to who Tom Burke is ever since, just to keep an eye out. And I know quite well who Chris Hemsworth is. And, you know, no shit, icon filmmaker George Miller from Australia gets popular Australian actor in that of Chris Hemsworth to star in his upcoming movie shot in Australia.
His first film shot in Australia. This is Chris Hemsworth's first film in Australia. Did you know that?
Is it? I don't know. Yeah. I did not. Well, that's
there you go.
Good. Yeah, close to home, right?
Flash fact in the trailer of the week. Mix the two together.
Well, and I thought it was great casting. Like, of course, though, that's great casting. You know, and it's a prequel to the Mad Max movie, so I don't mind that Anya Taylor's playing a young Furiosa and Charlize Theron is, you know, that's fine. Tom Hardy was recast after Mel Gibson after Mad Max. And I even remember, like, listening, I was paying so much attention to Furiosa with everything. It was supposed to be released in 2023, now it's pushed to 2024, way back in 2022 that was. So I've been eagerly excited for Furiosa to come out. And it's going to take place over the course of multiple years as opposed to a couple of days. And it's more, as much as the madness and craziness and frantic pace that appears to be in the movie based on the trailer, that was ever present in Mad Max. This is, I think, going to be more of a slow burn, but I'm ready for it. And it's nice to see as well that, you know, typical hero type, good looking protagonist in that of Chris Hemsworth, you know, cast in this movie, you'd almost think to compare him to Tom Hardy as Mad Max or Mel Gibson as Mad Max, you know, a cool, ripped, heroic action guy, right? That's not Chris Hemsworth here. Yeah, sure, he's ripped, but that's what he is. He's playing Dr. Dementus, a warlord with peely skin and a grey black beard with a very thick Aussie accent. And I'm ready for it. Did you like the trailer?
I did, and it's clear that the stylized world that George Miller created in Mad Max Fury Road has carried over to this, that he's happy to continue this version of the world, even though it is a prequel, and it kind of was set by Fury Road. I'm glad that he's carried that over, because this very much does seem like it's just the next chapter. Even though it's a prequel, it just feels like another story within this world that he set up. So I'm not as excited for it as you, because I don't think anyone is as excited for it as you are, but very much excited, and look forward to discussing it in depth once it comes out, and we get your full thoughts on the whole shebang. And like you were saying there, if you want to see how much you really do actually enjoy Fury Road, just go back and listen to our previous episode where we did a bit of a spotlight on it, and you got to talk about it in depth.
Dave, I'm obsessed with the fact that Junkie XL, who scored a lot of the music and soundtrack of Mad Max, is returning to do Furiosa. That means I'm in for some great, iconic, goosebumps-inducing action sequences. I wonder what it will look like when we do our 2024 most anticipated list. Top 10.
Can you get
that's a episode for another time. David, shall we move on, motor on today's subject?
Yeah, so we're doing one a little bit out of the box, not our normal not our normal just talking about a movie. We're going to do a bit of a look on a topic. It was your idea here to do actors who we've always seen as older actors. So do you want to kind of explain what I mean by that?
Well, put it this way. Me and you, we're Gen Zs. Whether we love or hate it, that's what we are. And to us Gen Zs and anyone else who identifies as Gen Zs, we have decided to shortlist 3 actors each who we believe have looked the same all our lives. We've limited, if that's an appropriate word to this list, because there's so many, but we've limited to actors who are still alive and still with us. So for example, we have decided not to choose the likes of Christopher Lee or Michael Gambon, unfortunately. So I think this was a nice out of the box subject to have a little discussion on, because there are so many actors who have looked the same in our lives. Still do. Yeah, if you look back and maybe the earliest movie you've seen them in, whether it's before your birth or around it or even after it, yeah, they might look different now. But all your life they've looked the same. Like, they've always been old. They've always been within that age range. And now, yeah, you might look at them now and, my God, they're very old. They're like granddad, but they're still the same. So I like the list I've chosen. I hope everyone likes the list we both decided on. So
I think the best way I can describe it for myself is when you see this actor in a movie from years ago, you say, oh, it stars a young blank, as opposed to if you were to see a movie with them now where you'd go, oh, it stars an old blank. It's more of a novelty to see them as a younger version of themselves, because you've just always happened to see them at this later stage in their life in all the movies that you've seen them in, and they're always in this kind of older stage, the latter half of their life, I suppose. But we mean this in our, if any of these boys are listening now, we only mean it in a good way. Like, yous are old, dignified men, and we
icons,
appreciate and support you. Yeah,
icons, 100%. Like you said, David, it would be like seeing Harrison Ford in the first Indiana Jones movie or in the first Star Wars movie compared to now. That's just one example.
If you had only ever seen Harrison Ford from, I suppose, Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skulls,
all his legacy sequel movies these days,
and then all of a sudden you saw the original Blade Runner, you were like, whoa, a young Harrison Ford. It's maybe that'll be the next. What's the next generation after Gen Z? Gen X? Maybe for them. Maybe they will be making a podcast in years to come saying, Harrison Ford, he's always been old, whereas the two of us, have seen him in Indiana Jones and Han Solo in Star Wars. So but less waffling and we'll move on. Do you want to start us off with your list? Do you want to go through your 3 boyos?
My boyos, yeah. My first choice today, David, is Anthony Hopkins.
Excellent choice.
So Anthony Hopkins right now is 85. Sir Anthony Hopkins, excuse me. He was born in 19... Yep, he was born in 1937. And I was born the same year Amistad was released. You know Amistad, Spielberg
No.
movie. Stars Djimon Hounsou as a slave who was captured. Matthew McConaughey is in it.
I've actually never heard of it even.
Oh, wait till you hear the cast. I'm not going to say it here, but I'm just going to give a highlight to Anthony Hopkins. Now, he does look a bit different. He was bald and he had a beard, but that was the year I was born. And just to not have some stalkers follow me, I'm not going to say what year that is. But before that, in 1994, he still looked arguably the same in Shadowlands when he played C.S. Lewis, the author of the Narnia books. I remember seeing that movie in school when I was either drinking Mountain Dew or Magners. I can't remember which. I remember, what cool, Anthony Hopkins movie. And he looks there as he looks right now. So that's entirely my life, at least as far as back in 1994. Now, arguably the earliest movie I seen Anthony Hopkins in was Silence of the Lambs. I haven't seen that first. I obviously saw it later in life when I was age appropriate. So, age appropriate. I think I was going to make a joke that I was young when I saw it, but I actually probably wasn't. I might have seen it. Well, I don't know. Maybe I was probably in fifth year. So, and of course, in Silence of the Lambs, he was much more slimmer. He had more grey hair than he did white hair, and he was capable of murdering you physically, hands on. You would be scared of him, and as you essentially progress through Sir Anthony's life, after the likes of Shadowlands and Amistad, he's been in so many movies that I've never seen. Like Mask of Zorro, Hannibal, which starred Ray Liotta and recasted the Jodie Foster to Julianne Moore, and then Red Dragon, which was the prequel, and on and so forth. He starred in a load of movies. I remember The Wolfman with Benicio del Toro. 3 years before that, he was in Beowulf, so it was a motion capture movie. And then, populated by Thor as Odin, and just kept on going. He played Alfred Hitchcock, well appropriate. Noah. I saw a movie called Saw. He's in the Transformers movie. He was in The Two Popes, which an actor who I am afraid I did not put on this list because there are so many. Jonathan Pryce. And recently I've seen him in Armageddon Time, The Sun. He's got a new movie called One Life coming out. And he's going to be in Rebel Moon. So you can see, just based on that list, why I chose Anthony Hopkins. And in 2020, he won an Oscar for The Father. So he still got it. Like he's not just arriving to work saying, whatever, I'm this, that, and the other. I can just I can just waft it in. No, he shows up to work. So he does. So need I say more? I think anyone listening to us would pretty much agree. Anthony Hopkins, good Welshman, decent man.
Yeah, just even like you're saying there, I think maybe one of the earliest movies I saw him in also was Silence of the Lambs, and everyone that you mentioned there after that I have seen, I'm just picturing him in that movie, and like that, he just progressively gets older and older and older, but looks the same. The only difference being kind of a few wrinkles and the hair getting a bit whiter. He's just always looked that age.
A mother wouldn't see their baby grow from significant differences. Same with a pet dog owner. You see them grow every day, whereas someone who visits once a month will see the difference, if you know what I mean. I think that's applicable. So my next decision to choose an actor of the same subject matter is Sir Patrick Stewart. So, good old Professor X.
Captain Picard.
Jean-Luc Picard, Patrick Stewart is 83. He was born in 1940. He's already played a 90-year-old man in one of his later X-Men movies, Logan, and that's what he's known for. X-Men, Professor Charles Xavier. He was brought back in the MCU to play Professor Xavier again. And yes, that is what he is well known for. In fact, that is what I primarily know him for. I know him as Professor X, and I know of him as Jean-Luc Picard in Star Trek, the TV show. But he looked the same in the first Star Trek movie, Generations, in 1994. So, a few years later, I was born, he still looks the same. In the first X-Men movie, 2000, if I'm correct, he looks the same there, and he looks the same ever since. Patrick Stewart was 59 in the first X-Men movie, and now he's 83. So, no doubt, of course, he's just looked the same all my life. And I'm happy with the decision I've made, because even though I've not seen much of him in comparison to Anthony Hopkins or the third fella I've chosen on my list, he's an instant choosing, you know, and he's yin and yang to a couple of professionals in the film industry, and sure, he was brought back in a trilogy of seasons in Star Trek Picard. So there's his legacy sequel, if you will, from Star Trek. So he, as much as you love him for Professor X and know of him of Professor X, there's a huge fan base who know of him in the Star Trek universe. It's just too big of a universe for me to get on board with it. I can just understand what he means to loads of people. So yeah, I thought Patrick Stewart was a good choice for myself.
He's one that very much kind of has aged really gracefully, in that he's already bald, so it's not like we've seen his hair like grey, or like he goes from the brown to the grey. But if you go back and watch him in like that, the first X-Men, and then watch him in his most recent appearance in Doctor Strange, it feels like, not that they could have been filmed years apart, but you can definitely notice a difference in maybe his mobility and you can just feel the agedness of him.
Well, yes, of course, 100%, but that's no different than any of the people we've chosen here in our list. Yes, of course.
But he's looked the exact same the entire way through. He's always been, when he is in Doctor Strange, he is exactly the same in the original X-Men. You know, I don't see much of a difference.
I think you reminded me of another gentleman who I don't think neither of us considered. So because I've said he's not on our list, I'll just shout him out right here. Stephen Lang.
Stephen Lang. Oh, see, I haven't seen much of Stephen Lang except for the Avatar movies and Don't Breathe. So I couldn't speak to him, but that is also a good shout. Anyway,
moving on to my final choice, David, and this man right here, right? I've chosen for an actor who's looked the same to me for the duration of my life. This man is God to me on this list. And pun intended, he played God. The ever great Morgan Freeman is 86 as we speak, born in 1937. He was 57 in Shawshank Redemption, and that was in 1994.
Wow.
And the first movie I should say the earliest movie I saw of him later in my life was Driving Miss Daisy. So, wow, that was definitely something. I think that he was 52 in that movie. And then the year later, he was in Seven. If people haven't seen Shawshank Redemption, they've seen Seven. And just, Morgan Freeman. He looks like he does now as he did then. And guess what, David? He was also in Amistad.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Sharing screen time with Sir Anthony Hopkins. That was in the year I was born. So those two gentlemen have looked the same now as I'd argue they have then. And
Morgan Freeman, I think, came out of the womb an old man. Like, the fact that you're saying there that he was how old in 57?
58, I think.
58. And, like, to think that movie came out and he already looks like, I'm like 2 years away from retirement. And yet it's been nearly 30 years since then and he's still active and acting. He's always, the entire time that we've been alive, he's been just one of them L fellas. You know, you just see Morgan Freeman and you go, oh yeah, I know him. He's the old guy. Like that, the first time I saw him was Bruce Almighty playing God. and he
Me,
was the
I think me too. Yeah.
yeah, and he's like this older, wiser figure that you just like. He just fits the role, I think, perfectly. Like, if I got to heaven and God was Morgan Freeman, I'd be like, this is awesome. This is cool. I'm glad that you're like just such a heavenly presence. So, no, he's a great pick. He's always, I can't imagine him being young. I can't imagine watching a movie and him being 20 years old, you know?
Yeah, I think Morgan Freeman is my favorite pick on this list. Like you go, like of course I mentioned Driving Miss Daisy, 1989. That was the earliest movie I seen of him. But then I think what put him in the mainstream popular audience was Shawshank, and then he did Outbreak with a good cast. He did Seven with a good cast, and then he did Homicide with a good cast, and then he did a Deep Impact, which is a Hard Rain, a movie I saw as a child, which was in 1998. Let's just say I was close to the year of my birth, and he was old in that. And on and on and on to movies I know he was in, like Along Came a Spider, Sum of All Fears, and then yes, Bruce Almighty. And just keep going with, the Batman movies with Christopher Nolan. He narrated World of Worlds. He was in The Contract, he was in Almighty, he was in God Baby Gone, he was in Wanted, he was kept on in, as Lucius Fox in the Dark Knight movies. He popularized that character. He worked with Clint Eastwood in Invictus, and a movie western before that, Unforgiven. He was in Oblivion with Tom Cruise. He was in Lego Movie. He was in Transcendence. He narrated a Lennon McCarthy. He was in Ted 2. Now You See Me with Michael Caine. It's just for Hitman's Bodyguard. Yeah. Yeah. Morgan Freeman is God.
More ways than one.
So yeah, I'm delighted with the gentleman, the icon gentleman I've selected for this. Those are the top three men who I thought were best for me to give shout outs when it comes to men who have actors who have been as old as they are now when I was a baby, essentially.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll move on then to my three picks. So, pick number one for me. Easy pick, number one. Robert De Niro.
That's an instant choice, yeah.
I think the earliest I ever saw De Niro was Meet the Parents. And in Meet the Parents, he's already the patriarchal authority figure, looming over Ben Stiller's Greg. And just ever since then, he's always been that level to me. Even looking back, if I go back and look at some of his other films like Goodfellas or Mean Streets or Taxi Driver, Raging Bull, it's always, a young Robert De Niro, this is a treat. But like
in our generation, he's pretty much looked how he is now. And yes, you can say a couple of wrinkles, and less mobility. But of course, Robert De Niro, he's always had the grey hair or the white hair, and he's always looked like that. And he was, man. For me, it was Meet the Fockers, the sequel. That movie was on here just the other night, and I think I asked one of my siblings who would win, Robert De Niro's character, Jack, or Dustin Hoffman's character, whatever his name was. I thought who would win a fight because he was challenging him to a fight, and I thought who would actually win? Like, Jack, like Robert De Niro. His muscles have muscles.
And I think what helps is he has such a distinctive face. Like his own characteristics, just putting that face on him at a younger age, like say looking at him in Taxi Driver or even in The Godfather, you are drawn to what he looks like in his later years. Like even though you're seeing him as a young guy, you are still thinking of him as the older version,
A lot of people older than us would have watched Robert De Niro when he was younger, maybe around their age. Let's say our parents, for example, a new movie out starring Robert De Niro, their age, similar ages, younger than our grandparents' ages, we should say. So to us, of course, we are the generation to go back and look at a young Robert De Niro, because to us, yeah, meet the Fockers, meet the parents. That's who he has been to us.
Mm-hmm.
Not an action man, just an old scary granddad.
Yeah, I'd put him like that. And then the first movie I actually saw of him, even though Meet the Parents is the benchmark for him, I think the first movie I saw him in was The Adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle. He plays the bad guy in that. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but it's a.
I remember seeing that movie. It was one of those movies that.
It's like a Nickelodeon movie almost.
I can't remember Robert De Niro in it, and it feels like it was a movie that that's on, but I missed like an hour of it, and I want to watch it all in its entirety, but it's rarely ever on.
Yeah, you'd always find it. You'd always find it when it's playing and Keenan and Kel are there at the college. Like for some reason, it's you'd always find it at the exact same scene. You're like, no, I want to watch this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It literally happened to me when Keenan and Kel popped into the movie. It was pretty much around that time. Oh, Keenan and Kel, and then from that onwards into the movie. Then the fucking hedgehog or the badger or the squirrel, he flies at the end. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, so it's the first half of that movie I've not watched. Yeah, wow. I must investigate that movie.
That's your homework for tonight now. So
I did my homework. I logged a movie I don't log that I've seen already.
My second pick, in a similar vein to yourself, I have gone with someone who also appeared in some X-Men movies, and that is Sir. You had a Sir. I'm going to have a Sir. Sir Ian McKellen. For me, Ian McKellen will always be Gandalf the Grey. I don't care what anyone says. Like, he will always be that to me. And considering that movie came out in 2001, and he in that is an old wise wizard, everything after that then is at the earliest point for me with Ian McKellen. It's he's an old wise wizard. So everything after that is just later on. Like everything that he's appeared in, I feel like he just plays a different, slightly older version. Like not only seeing him in The Lord of the Rings and X-Men and stuff like that, but when he appears in The Da Vinci Code, Stardust,
Didn't see it.
He's in Cats as like I think Ian McKellen, he's someone who I would describe as wise beyond his years, that he's an old soul, because he is very much more of a theatre actor, and he would always play, like, say, in Richard III or Macbeth and stuff like that. He has such a way of carrying himself that he just always appears to be old, you know?
If you didn't choose Ian McKellen, I would have.
Yeah.
And as much as he is Gandalf the Grey to you, I just like him as bad guy Magneto. And how great is that? You get to play one of the greatest good guys ever in literature, and then arguably one of the best villain anti-heroes in all of superhero comics, Magneto. It's just more. It's more different than Jean-Luc Picard and Professor X. Like how great is that, Ian McKellen? And I love their brotherly friendship, Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart. They get along great. God, can you imagine if those two make appearances in Deadpool 3?
Yeah, easily. I think Ian McKellen's portrayal as Magneto kind of certifies him as one of those villains who you're told is a villain, but you can't help but like. Do you know? It's not even like you love to hate him or anything like that. You just like him. You just want to see more of Magneto. And he just brings that kind of, that whole aspect to it. And like when we're introduced to both Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart in the first X-Men movie, that is, for a lot of people, including ourselves, one of probably the earliest roles that we saw him in, because I've seen him in X-Men, which is 2000, and then like I say in there, Fellowship of the Ring, 2001. So like you were saying there, of it's close enough to when we were born, so we were like, 4 or 5 or whatever, that if that's where we're seeing him, then everything after that is we're comparing him always to those older roles.
That's the baseline for us.
I think that he was an excellent choice. One I want to see him in that I haven't seen him in is Mr. Holmes. I want to see his portrayal as an elderly Sherlock Holmes. I can't imagine that being a bad interpretation, just because...
Of course not. I've heard of that movie, I just never got to it.
No, I think it's on Disney Plus. I think it's on my list there, and it's just one that I kind of always scroll over. But, he's a classically trained actor in an older role. But Ian McKellen, that's my choice for pick number 2. And then pick number 3, the final pick of this podcast, is Bill Nighy.
We both chose 2 British men and an American each.
Oh, I didn't even realise that. That wasn't, that's not intentional. But Bill Nighy is one that I felt was a little bit more out of the box. I think that the other ones that we picked were a bit more traditional.
In the mainstream, yeah.
Yeah, but Bill Nighy is an actor who pops up, not very often, but pops up occasionally. But every time he pops up, you're like, he looks the same but older. He always looks like how you'd expect him to look at this many years on. Do you know? I think the earliest I've seen him was actually probably Love Actually.
What year was that?
Love Actually was 2003.
So that's near enough around the time as us. And he did have a waft of hair then. And he's always had a waft of hair. Whether now, yes, sometimes he wears wigs, but that's in costume. I'm talking about him as himself. He's always looked like that. And you know what else, right? He's got that voice.
He's got a very distinctive voice, and he's a brilliant... he's English, but do you know where in England he's from, actually? I don't know, but he's got a very distinctive voice. Is he Scottish? No, he's English.
He's definitely British. That's why I said British, I suppose, because Sir Anthony's Welsh.
Oh, okay.
I don't know the rest. And I love that you chose someone like Bill Nighy. Because I would compare him to someone like another Pirates of the Caribbean star, Jonathan Pryce. If you've if listeners don't know who Jonathan Pryce is, if they don't know who Bill Nighy is, pause this and go look them up. You'll know who they are by looking at them.
Yeah.
Right?
They might not be names that they're not like household names, but as soon as you see him, you go, oh yeah, I know him. He plays Billy Mack in Love Actually, and then he
was a good character.
Yeah, he's one of my favourites in it. And he's very famously known for, well, not famously, but he plays Davy Jones in the Pirates of the Caribbean, the second 2 of the main trilogy, but he's covered in complete prosthetics and CG, so it's not one that you would know him. You wouldn't recognize him to see him. He doesn't actually have tentacles on his face, but
Davy Jones arguably be the best Pirates of the Caribbean villain. He was for over 2 movies. 2 movies, man. Bill Nighy is a great show. They even nabbed him for 2 scenes in the Harry Potter franchise, and
whenever he pops up, you're delighted to see him.
Yeah, that's crazy now. I wonder, because when it comes to Britain, an island of actors, you think British produced movies, franchises, TV shows. So, say Game of Thrones. Any Game of Thrones. You'd think, I suppose at this stage you might want to think, I might get this actor, and I might get this actor, I might get this actor. Because Jonathan Pryce, right, as we mentioned. Charles Dance as well. He was only introduced to us, let's say me and you, when we did watch Game of Thrones. He wasn't one of the Alien movies, but that's different. But that's what I mean. Another one would be the Harry Potter franchise. To think of all the great actors who were brought into each movie. Now I'm thinking, they're doing the Harry Potter TV show, and they have a lot of older generational actors to cast. So they'll just cast those who have not been in Harry Potter movies, and they'll go for it. I think.
Whoever's
it's
left.
Quite mad.
Nearly everyone. Whoever's left. Whoever wasn't in the first ones. But I do have to say, for Bill Nighy, I do have to give him a shout out for being in one of my favourite movies of all time, About Time. I don't know if you've seen it, but he plays the dad in About Time.
Yeah, I've seen the trailer. I know exactly what it is. I just never had the privilege of watching.
I would, take your homework tonight now and watch About Time and The Adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle. A strange double billing, but a double billing nonetheless.
Are those your recommendations?
Recommendations? Yeah, fuck it. I'm going to recommend About Time. It's one of my favourite movies. It is a fantastic romantic, not even a romantic comedy, just a fantastic romance movie with a lot of comedy, a lot of heart. It's written by Richard Curtis, who also did Love Actually. He actually directed it as well. It's a movie that, if it was on, I would always just stop and watch it. You know, I think it's so lovely. I'd go out of your way to watch About Time. That's to both the audience and you, because it's I wouldn't have a bad word said about it, you know?
I know what you mean.
What about you? You got anything for me? The Furiosa trailer again?
Oh, don't get me started. You know what? In light of Furiosa, I am going to recommend Mad Max Fury Road again. I'm going to recommend you watch it again. If you didn't, especially if you didn't watch it upon listening to our discussion of Mad Max in 2015, because I watched it for my homework before discussion, and I'm going to recommend it again just in light of that. I was going to recommend another movie released in the same year, but it may be another time, which also starred Tom Hardy. I was going to recommend another movie that I want to do a bonus episode on, because it's a movie that I will hit you at the back of the head with a shovel and bury you if you say it's utter shite, because I don't care what it is. It's nostalgia childhood to me.
Keep that in your back pocket. Keep that in your back pocket.
Yeah. I hope the listeners are eager to listen to hear what movies I'm talking about. But all in due time. It's been a good year. We're getting near the end. Listeners, if you've been listening to us throughout the year, thank you. Anyone who's popped into listening to us anytime throughout the year, thank you again. Please, by all means, give us a like, give us 5 stars. It costs you nothing and it gives us everything. Do you know what we were just saying today, David? Was that saying something nice to someone could just make someone's day? That a couple of 5 stars and a couple of likes will just make our day.
Absolutely.
Would you agree?
100%.
We always post our stories and subjects on Instagram. That's where we promote our stuff primarily. We're on Talking Pictures Pod on Instagram, and our email is talkingpicturespodcast1@gmail.com. Any questions, any queries, any suggestions, please send them on in. We'd love to have them, especially if you've enjoyed any movies this year, or if you've any anticipated movies for next year. Please send them all in. We're doing nothing. So that's all I got to say for this Out of the Box episode tonight, David. Any other things for you?
I think you nailed everything. Send in your questions and queries. If you have any actors that you think have always been old to you, we'd love to hear it. There's so many that we didn't get to mention because we limited ourselves to 3, but let us know if any of our suggestions jogged any of your own thoughts on who you think is an actor or actress. We didn't get to dive into any actresses this time around, but maybe we'll revisit the subject at a later date. But if you've like Brian said, any thoughts, any queries, any suggestions, anything, let us know
in the comments below. All that jazz. Alright, David, I'm gonna go watch Furiosa trailer again. Good night.
Take it easy.